Super Bowl 59 is set in the Bayou as the Kansas City Chiefs will take on the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch from 2 years ago. Go figure, right? We'll have both breakdowns of both conference championship games from yesterday. While back at home, the new Chicago Bears coaching staff is shaping up to be in place for 2025. In basketball, the Bulls lose another ugly one, this time to the Philadelphia 76ers, who were depleted, while the Los Angeles Lakers will start out their road trip with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the rest of the company to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Master Keys finally wins the tournament in the Australian Open, and we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more as Second City Sports starts right now. Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded and live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. You better know by now that this is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Candy McGee on the Twitter, X, again, the IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcasts. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, give Lakina full powers to give you fools to build and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you, whether you're watching us live right now on our YouTube and Facebook channels or you're catching us on the replay, shout out to the replay game. We're always here for you no matter what, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And you know we will provide.
We'll provide you with some of the best here on Second City Sports, of course, as we get finals from the Australian Open. An American woman, gets the title, finally wins her first Grand Slam title, and also, of course, a special edition of Old School TV Monday with a great special. You guys are gonna love this. Of course, Illinois gets their revenge against Northwestern. We talk a little college hoops. And the Bulls was a tough one to the Sixers, but apparently they're open for business, according to Joe Cowley. We'll get to that. The rest of the weekend in the NBA. We'll get to Championship Sunday to recap there, too. But first, Sid, the Bears have been busy filling out their coaching staff. We'll start with the main ones. Dennis Allen has been hired, of course, formerly of the Saints as their head coach. He's now going to be the new DC for the Bears, defensive coordinator, and also, too, a 28-year-old 28-year-old Declan Doyle, who was the passing game coordinator with the Broncos, his last stop. He comes in to be the OC for the Bears. Antoine Randall L., who was with the Lions and with new head coach Ben Johnson and that staff. He's coming back home to Chicago to be the QB coach. And some other names. We'll get to them in a second. So, Sid, what do you think about this staff that the Bears are shaping up so far?
As Ben Johnson said in his press conference last week, he's looking for an experienced staff, a staff that's innovative, and a staff that is experienced and with fresh ideas. And that's what it's simple here. Dennis Allen was not a successful head coach, but he's been a successful defensive coordinator wherever he's been. And so with this Bears team trying to grow and trying to turn it around, hopefully within the next year or two, you need somebody to teach these young guys the ropes and bring that experience into the coaching circle, into the coaching room. Now, offensively, it's been like this for over 100 years, right, Lakina? Run the ball, play defense, throw a couple passes to the tight ends here and there, and occasionally throw to the wide receivers to make the stats look good. But the way that the NFL game is today, you have to be more innovative. You have to be more productive. You have to be more aggressive. And the Bears have not done that consistently uh, over the last 100 years of the franchise, but definitely not over the last decade or so. We've seen a couple of highlight seasons here and there offensively, but it's always been leaning towards the defense has been this team's identity. Hopefully, this team will have a healthy balance between offense and defense. And from a fan's perspective, I'm tired of watching this Bears team be pedestrian on offense, barely scored 20, 21 points a game. This is not 1999 to 2001 and Gary Crowton, John Shoup, that you could copy the Baltimore Ravens. You barely get by winning 20 to 10 or 17 to 13. Those days are long gone. You need to catch up with the times, but still be aggressive in who you are and trying to find an identity.
You're listening to Second City Sports and Sports in Chicago. Keenan Geese, Steve Brown with you. Talking the Bears coaching staff taking shape here on Second City Sports. Now, as far as Doyle's, Declan Doyle's concerned, like I say, he's only 28. He was a passing game coordinator with Sean Payton, who we know he's an offensive mind too. So he did learn from some of the best. And look, it's gonna be interesting to see like who's gonna be the one that's gonna be calling plays. I know Ben Johnson said in his press that he would be the one calling plays. How much is Doyle's gonna is he gonna be thinking of creative ways to kind of get that that offense, try to make Caleb more productive and perhaps maybe get Cole Clement involved in the wide receiver and core and such. So that's the thing I'm wondering about that. Now, as far as does now look, you got a guy who's been doing this for almost 20 years, so you got someone who but now again, I would also say it's all about the personnel. Like how are the Bears drafting and free agency and such. That's how you're gonna see if this is gonna be the way to kind of like get the personnel to sort of run that offense. So yeah, you can get all the coaching that you want, but you got to have the personnel to help run these types of plays. So that's what the Bears have to do.
And speaking of the personnel, I want to bring this question up to you. How much of a say will these new position coaches have? Not just Ben Johnson, but with these coordinators and the new position coaches will have in terms of the players that they want that Ryan Poles should draft this coming. I think believe it's the end of April, early May. This year's NFL draft. How much say will they have being the new coaching staff? Because by that point, they would have had looked at all the film of what happened last year. We need this person. We need this person to fit this scheme. We need this person to fit that scheme. How much say would these new coaches have into pulling GM Ryan Poles' ear on who they should draft? Because he's going to have a set of eyes and have his set of ideas of who they should draft. And the new coaching staff say, hey, you may like this person, but let's say we could trade back and get this player or get that player. How much say will this new coaching staff have in pulling Ryan Poles' ear and draft a particular player?
I think what's also too is that Johnson admitted his press that he's never met Dennis Allen. They've never worked together, so that's going to be interesting to see like how these two mesh together. Like they may have different philosophies and different ways to kind of get things done. So that's going to be a sort of a thing to kind of look at and such. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how all these personalities. Because we know they all have all of them have different personalities. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how they all mesh together. So yeah, there's still a lot to kind of be decided here. And look, you got the free agency, then you got the draft coming up. You got the combine coming up as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see like where you're gonna go. Are you gonna go with O-line help? Or are you gonna go try to get another receiver? I know some people said how about Ashton Genty for that that 9 spot for the Bears from Boise State. I mean, I know, do you really want to running backs are kind of a dime a dozen, so you really want to do that. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of discuss here. But yeah, but it looks like they are taking shape. Like I said, now you just got to get the personnel to help run these kind of schemes.
And speaking of the personnel, I want to start with the defense since Dennis Allen is the new defensive coordinator. And from what I've heard, I'm sure you heard this too, that the Bears will be running a 4-3 system. They've been running 3-4 for the last several years, to the last couple of head coaches with Eberflus in particular. I wonder if we're going to have a surprise cut or two around free agency in the terms of who fits the system, because, like you said, the combine is first. followed by free agency, and followed by the draft. It may be a couple of guys on this roster, especially on that D line, that may not fit the 4-3 system. And if that's the case, we all know that the Bears are, I believe, in the top five in salary cap room. And so, could a couple of those guys have their jobs in jeopardy, just based not just on production, but based on the scheme that Dennis Allen wants to run? If you don't fit that system, and whether you were productive or not under the previous regime, you may be out of here.
Could be. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, that's gonna be the thing here. We know that that's sort of the 4-3 is really his scheme. So, like you said, don't be surprised if there are a couple of names that, especially familiar names that may not fit that scheme, and the guys might like, well, wait a minute, I'm not. I'm more of a 3-4 guy, so they may say,
Hmm.
you know what, I might say bye bye to that. So it's a lot. Like I say, a lot of work to do still, but it looks like they at least are moving into the right direction, at least so far.
Yeah, and also too with the special teams, I know Richard Hightower will return as a special teams coordinator. Of course, we talked about the struggles of last year with Cairo Santos having uh, back-to-back kicks blocked in those games that they lost against Minnesota and Green Bay at home. Part of that was Cairo Santos' fault. The other part was the protection in front of him, i.e., the offensive line. Of course, they had a couple of nice returns toward the end of the year, including the Black Rose return for a touchdown against the Green Bay Packers in that regular season finale back in January. The Bears have been known to have good special teams throughout the years. I know there was a couple of hiccups here and there on the Joe DeCamillis during the Mark Trestman administration. That's how bad he was. Almost forgot his name, but for the most part, through their history, the Bears have had great special teams, and I expect that trend to continue. And I expect whatever happened last year with those back-to-back weeks with block kicks, I expect that to cease. Yes, it happens every once in a while, but for back-to-back weeks, that's just unacceptable.
Couple over coaching notes before we go to break here. Of course, former interim and OC Thomas Brown. He's been hired as the new tight ends coach and pass game coordinator for new coach Mike Vrabel over with the Patriots. And Matt Eberflus, coach Flus is he wasn't unemployed for long. He's been named new defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, who of course now with Brian Schottenheimer as their new head coach. So a nice get from Mr. Schottenheimer, and looks like it should be finalized before the day is over with. Now, I wonder, God rest his soul. Brian's dad, of course, was Marty, and I'm wondering, like, is he? If he were with us still, and then of course he died a couple years ago, you wonder like how he would feel with Brian taking that Cowboys job. Sid.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, part of your statement went out on me, so you can repeat that last part.
Oh yeah, I would say it'll be interesting to see if Brian's father, the late great Marty Schottenheimer, I wonder how he feels about his son taking that Cowboys job, because we know that he didn't have good record against the Cowboys, so it's kind of a full circle moment for Brian.
I'm sure if he was still here, he'll be proud of him as a father-son relationship. But I found it interesting that Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, will drop this late. It's not just in regular news, but in sports too. Friday night, I'll drop that
Mhm.
news on a Friday night, and because we all know that Jerry Jones is an attention-seeking person, and you would have put that out on Monday, like today, if you want to get all the news out there, because he loves attention. But to drop it on a Friday night, I'm sure he knew that that the response from fans and some of the media pundits weren't going to be as well received as it has not been. It's been met with a lot of pushback. But the Cowboys are, I'm not going to say they're in trouble, but it's always pressure with them to win Super Bowls. The standard has been set throughout those years in the 70s, of course, in the 90s when they won three Super Bowls, two of them under Jimmy Johnson. So, and they haven't been to an NFC Championship game since the 1995 season. So, it's a lot of pressure in Dallas. So, hopefully, Brian Schottenheimer is ready for that pressure. They're known as America's team for a reason, whether we like it or not. So, uh, Mr. Schottenheimer is walking to a whole lot of pressure inside that locker room, and there will be some changes. Will Micah Parsons stay? or will he go because of salary cap constraints? Dak Prescott is going to come back for the second time, I believe, in 4 years due to a season injury, and they may have another new running back. We don't know, but their Cowboys team is going to be different. But it's going to be a whole lot of pressure on them next year, given the fact that one of the teams in your division will be representing your division in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
And don't forget the Bears do play the Cowboys next season, so a little reunion there with them and Eberflus. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're gonna take a really quick break. Of course, we'll recap Championship Sunday. It'll be a rematch of Super Bowl 57, and of course you got yeah. Well, let's just say this is a point of contention for some people. But we're gonna explain. I'll explain why. It wasn't just that call that cost the Bills. And of course, the Eagles, made a statement against the Commanders. So all that and more coming next with Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports. On Sports in Chicago, we recap Championship Sunday coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition of the program. You're locked and loaded and live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. If you have any questions or comments for us as we review Championship Sunday, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Look, get the up on the screen for you.
And Championship Sunday, we do go as, of course, Super Bowl 59 is now set. And, I think, well, whatever you want to call that. But let's go to the first game of the matchup. It was really all Philadelphia. I know the Commanders did keep it close for a little bit, but it was just too much of Saquon Barkley, 118 yards, 3 TDs for Mr. Barkley. Jalen Hurst, 246 yards and a TD. Jaden Daniels had 255 yards, a TD, an interception. He was also sacked 3 times. Turnovers were the thing here for the Commanders. They just couldn't kind of get their offense going. And, when you thought that maybe the Commanders would make a move and such, but yeah, unfortunately they couldn't do just that. So, and now Philadelphia is going to their 5th Super Bowl, their 2nd in 3 years. And congrats to Nick Sirianni and the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Washington Commanders came out on fire to start their opening drive to start the game. 18 plays. They had to settle for a field goal, but Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned, he was the man of the hour. He's been the man for the Eagles offense all season, along with that 60-yard touchdown run. But the Commanders responded with 12 points. But I think the momentum changer for me personally in that game came at the late end of that first half, where LaShawn Lattimore, who's been his play's been up and down all year. He's known as an agitator, going back to his days with the Saints. He's a defensive back for the Commanders. Him and A.J. Brown were talking trash, and he damn near pulled A.J. Brown's helmet off. He got a penalty for it, which led to the Eagles' touchdown to have them take the lead at the end of the first half. Me personally, if I was head coach Dan Quinn of the Commanders, I would have benched LaShawn Lattimore, because even though you like him to play on that edge to get the players' heads out of the game, sometimes you go a little bit too far, and that's what happened. I think that was one of the reasons why the Commanders lost yesterday. You mentioned about the turnovers. Jeremy Nichols fumbled. I believe Austin Eckler fumbled too later on in the game, which his fumble, which kind of sealed the Commanders' fate. But in my opinion, as we talked about the previous 2 weeks, Lakina, with the Commanders win last week against the Detroit Lions, Jeremy Nichols, Austin Eckler, and Brian Robinson Jr. both ran the ball. All 3 of those guys ran the ball hard. You did not see any of that yesterday. I get it. You want to go with a different game plan to at least start the game, but I thought their lack of commitment to the run, LaShawn Lattimore's stupid penalty toward the end of the first half, and of course the turnovers were the 3 death nailers for the Commanders yesterday. Yes, the Eagles were a better team, but self-inflicted wounds will not win you many games in this league. You saw that yesterday in the NFC title game.
Just too much, like I said, too much Saquon, turnovers, and just the fact that they just really couldn't get it going on offense. I'm talking about the Commanders. Now the Eagles yesterday, 55 points, 200 plus rushing yards, 200 plus net passing yards, 7 plus rushing TDs, and no turnovers. So no other team in NFL history, regular or postseason, has done all of that in one game. So a nice showing for Philadelphia, kind of, sort of sending the message there. So yeah, like I said, they go their 5th Super Bowl in down New Orleans in a couple of weeks. The granddaddy of them all, the Chiefs beat the Bills 32-29, I should say. Pat Mahomes 245 yards and a TD. Kareem Hunt had 64 rushing yards and a TD. Mahomes had 2 rushing TDs, 237 yards and 2 TDs from Mr. Josh Allen. 85 rushing yards and 2 TDs for James Cook. Travis Kelce had didn't have his best showing, only 19 receiving yards, but Xavier Worthy was the story there for 85 yards and a TD. Mac Hollins for the Bills had 73 receiving yards and a TD for them. And, okay, I know people want to sort of do the whole thing with Josh Allen. Yes, he did get that first down and that 4th down. That was about 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter. But for me, I think this whole thing was the fact that there are other reasons why they lost that game. It wasn't just that call. I mean, the Bills went for 2 twice. and they missed it. The first time, why were you even trying to just take the points and keep it moving? The second time, I get it because look, you're trying to tie the game, but sometimes just gotta take that extra point and just keep it moving, just hope and pray your defense makes a stop. They couldn't. I know, Don Kincaid had a pass that would have extended the drive, perhaps maybe give him a chance to force overtime. He didn't get it. It was just one of those things where I kind of felt like Allen might have threw it a little bit too hard and kind of a little bit like short, and Kincaid couldn't get to it. So yeah, I know people want to get on the Chiefs. Yes, they did get that bad, that call and such, but there were other reasons why that the Bills lost that game. It wasn't just that, and unfortunately for the Bills, they there have been and it's just unfortunate because they're the first team in NFL history to win a playoff game in 5 straight seasons, but not reach the Super Bowl in any of them. So unfortunately, what can you do if you're the Bills? But yeah, this game was just really it lived up to the hype, but yeah, it was just like the ending just wasn't what people wanted.
Now let's start off with the end of the first half. As you talked about, they scored the touchdown to bring it within 21-16. I would have taken the extra point to make it a 4-point game because you still had a second half to go. And James Cook, as you mentioned, the Buffalo Bills actually got him going in that second half, and he scored his 2 touchdowns, including that one which he jumped from the 3-yard line and reached out and had the ball over the pylon. That was a great run and great play by Mr. Cook. As we talked about on Friday with our girl Christine, the Queen Manica from KXRB, the Bills had to get him going. They did in the second half. They didn't do it so much in that first half, but the running game was established in that second half. Now, that fourth down play you mentioned I believe it was over 7 minutes to go. The Bills did get that play, that fourth down, in my opinion, but it was supposed to be the near judge referee that was supposed to make that call, not the referee from the far side. The referee from the far side, he can't see whether he made it or not because you have other players in your way that can distract your view. That's why you have referees all over the field. The referee in the near side of where the play actually happened, he should have made that call, but I digress. But I heard someone say on television last night, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, he was talking to, I believe it was CBS crew, because most television crews interview the coaches and the players the night before the game. And he said, because he looked at the film and said that Josh Allen loves to run that play off the left guard if they go on 4th and 1, which they converted a couple of plays before on the previous series. If Josh Allen decides to run that play, we are prepared for it. Were the Chiefs defense prepared for it? Yes, they were. But I believe that the wrong call was made from the far judge instead of the near judge. But you still got to play through it. Now, the Bills did play through it to tie the game at 29 on an unbelievable catch by Curtis Samuel in the back of the end zone on 4th and goal. But for the Bills, Lakina, I hate to use this phrase, do I, quote unquote, feel sorry for them? Yes, but I think their lack of commitment of running the ball in that first half, and their defense couldn't get that key stop on their last drive after that bad call. That's what really caused the Bills, because they were toe-to-toe with Kansas City as we expected. But I think just those two scenarios, along with them not taking the sure 1-pointer at the end of the first half, those 3 scenarios cost the Bills the game.
But again, I would also add to their defense just didn't make the big stop late. I mean, they could have, there were times when where were the defense just didn't make enough plays late. Russell Douglas, I mean, leaving Xavier Worthy wide open like 3 times, knowing the kind of damage that he makes. Ed Oliver actually did a great first. Did have a good play. I mean, he recovered a fumble and he was able to. And of course, the Bills ended up scoring a touchdown. But again, you needed more of those plays coming up late. And also, too, I know they lost a couple of one of their top guys due to the injury in the middle of that first half. But unfortunately, Kyer Elam didn't have a great game. Taron Johnson didn't have a great game. I mean, Matt Milano, was okay, but he did have a sack against Mahomes. But unfortunately, in the end, it just wasn't enough. And look, I mean, against the Chiefs, you got to take the points when you can. And also, you got to make those big plays. So I don't know why that the defense just couldn't get it, just couldn't make those big stops when they had to.
Yeah, and you saw the Buffalo Bills game plan. It wasn't good against those Chiefs wide receivers. We talked about on Friday they lacked the game play, big play ability. Xavier Worthy, the rookie wide receiver out of Texas, he had a big game, including a touchdown earlier in the game. Travis Kelsey was a non-factor. He did have a couple of catches there late, but he was a non-factor. Xavier Worthy. What was the star of that wide receiver group? I know Hollywood Brown had a catch in there too, so did DeAndre Hopkins, but the Bills secondary couldn't cover Xavier Worthy, and he's been an explosive player for the Chiefs all year. We saw what he did in college. So when the opportunity came and knocked it, he delivered. He delivered well yesterday. Also, too, with that Chiefs running game, Isaiah Pacheco was barely used. Kareem Hunt, I know he scored the first touchdown of the game, but the Chiefs were outgained by Buffalo in the rushing department, but they had the meaningful yards late when they was trying to put that game away.
And I would also say that with those fourth down plays, I mean, he had the Chiefs, the Bills had to know that the Chiefs knew that they were going to give Josh Allen the ball. Why not give it to Cook? I mean, Cook actually was pretty good. He had 85 yards and 13 carries. I mean, maybe a couple extra carries would have been nice. And maybe they could have, used him as one of those third and fourth down plays, and maybe that whole spot thing would not have been a factor. Again, there are lots. Look. I'm always one to say, hey, look, the refs are, giving the Chiefs, games or whatever, but you got to make the little things so that they wouldn't become a factor. And the Bills, unfortunately, didn't do the small things that could have gotten them, back to the Super Bowl.
I also looked at it yesterday too. You talk about the Josh Allen play where he went on the quarterback sweeps. Patrick Mahomes he hasn't done that too much so far this year. But when, as you mentioned, with the short yardage situations for the Chiefs, especially late in the game, Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, called that play for the quarterback sweeps. Mahomes was successful 2 for 2 converting on those third down conversions, giving the Chiefs a new life with those first down conversions. So the Chiefs were more effective of it than the Bills were late in the late stages of the game. But as we talked about all year long, Lakina, the Chiefs have defeated teams in so many ways. We saw do it with the offense a few years ago when they won their first Super Bowl against San Francisco. We've seen it over the last 2 years with their defense in the running game being effective late to wear the other teams down. Yesterday, the Bills shot themselves in the foot a couple of times. The Chiefs were able to take advantage of it and put the nail in the coffin.
This is Super Bowl number 7 for Kansas City. Of course, they're going for the third straight. They're hoping to do something that no NFL team is not the 70s Steelers, not the 80s 49ers, not the 90s Cowboys, not the aughts Patriots winning back-to-back Super Bowls. They'll face the Eagles. Their second meeting in 3 years, of course. The Chiefs got the best of the Eagles during their first matchup. And, of course, I'm already seeing people say they want to boycott the Super Bowl. I mean, okay, folks, that's I'm sure Fox is crying over that, but I mean, look, we got 2 weeks to preview this because it's not till the Super Bowl is not till the 9th, but it's sort of just one of those things where if you want to do like an early sort of synopsis of it, you give the Eagle side, you give those guys a chance to kind of heal up and such, especially on the defensive front. Jalen Carter is going to be very interesting against that. Jalen Carter wasn't there; he was over at Georgia when they faced each other a couple years ago. So that's really going to be kind of like the big difference there. And of course, look, Xavier Worthy. Look, I'm sure the secondary is going to be for the Eagles going to be looking out for him as well. So and Saquon, that's another going to be a big factor there. How does Spags, slow down Saquon? Can you slow down Saquon? So there are a lot. I know people want to make it seem like want to give the Chiefs a Super Bowl, which I'm hoping that's Nick Sirianni and the rest of that group with the Eagles use that as motivation. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting though. Like I said, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it, but it's sort of like an early sort of synopsis of this whole thing.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. See Lakina here with you, reviewing Championship Sunday, talking NFL. And if you have a Bears comment in there as well, you can hop on to Sports on Chicago's Facebook page or Sports on Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get the up on the screen for you. Lakina, speaking of the Super Bowl, like you say, we're do a deeper dive into it as we go along here on our show on Friday, and of course with both our shows coming up next week. But my initial reaction after watching the conclusion of the Bills Chiefs game last night, I said the NFL season is over, and the reason why I said that is because Kansas City, I respect them. I like watching Patrick Mahomes like everybody else, but it's time for some new blood. And if we weren't doing what we're doing on the show, which I love, will I be as much excited to watch this? I'll be honest with you, probably not. Unless you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan or diehard Patrick Mahomes fan, it's still going to be some excitement to the Super Bowl, but not too much because most of the people around the United States will want the Chiefs to lose because they've been there before. They won 3 Super Bowls over the last several years, and yes, Patrick Mahomes will perhaps go down as the arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, next to Tom Brady. Those comparisons will come up in within the next 2 weeks. Should Pat Mahomes win? Of course, you mentioned the Chiefs will try to do something that no NFL team has ever done, is win three straight Super Bowls, but another storyline that people I think will pay attention to, will start here, is defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. Remember, he wasn't a good head coach back 15, 20 years ago with the St. Louis Rams. I believe he was the defensive coordinator when the Giants won back in 2007. You saw that was a hell of a game plan against Tom Brady. And those guys, as the Patriots had an undefeated season that year, and the Giants shut them down, holding them to, I believe it was 14 points, of 17 points of it, if I'm not mistaken. So that was one of the best upsets in Super Bowl history with the whole David Tyree catch and all that. But we talk about the late great Buddy Ryan. He was the defensive coordinator when the '85 Bears won. I know it was 40 years ago yesterday. I get it. And we talk about Bill Belichick, or Bill Belichick as we call him on this show. He was the defensive coordinator with the New York Football Giants back in '86 and 1990 when those Bill Parcells and that crew won 2 Super Bowls. Why are we talking about Steve Spagnuolo as being one of the best defensive coordinators of the at least top 5, top 10?
I think maybe it's because the offense gets so much attention, and the defense is, look, you got Chris Jones in that defense, and I'm kind of sort of like, okay, and also like you said, I mean, he didn't have a good. I think he's showing you that. Although I know he's talked, about teams, about some other jobs. I know he was there for the Cowboys job and the Saints job as well. And look, I think it's sort of one of those things where you just like, unfortunately, it's one of those things where you got the offense getting so much attention, and other than Chris Jones, who didn't really have a good game yesterday. There's mostly, Justin Reed's been around a few years. You got like a lot of younger guys. Trey McDuffie is another guy been around, former Dolphin. So the fact that he doesn't get a lot of respect is sort of like unfortunate. But I think if they win, I think especially if they do, find a way to stop Saquon. It's going to be interesting to see if he does start getting more and more attention and such. So yeah, I'm not too surprised, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay, it's going to be against Spags defense against that Saquon Barkley and the Eagles offense. But then again, Vic Fangio, let's also remember too, he's like he won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, and look, he's been around a long time. He's not, chopped liver. So it'll be interesting how his defense going to, face Mahomes and try to slow down Worthy and Kelsey and the rest of that group. So it's going to be an interesting matchup on all fronts. So it's not just like one thing to be highlighted.
Yeah, and also too, I know the last matchup both these teams had a couple years ago, it turned out to be a high scoring game. Could we see that again with being in New Orleans? It's a strong possibility, but like you said, it's going to be a chess match, and especially early to see whose strength is worth more, and will whoever's strength comes out firing first, will the other team punch back? So we'll see what happens in less than 2 weeks. I believe it's 13 days from now from Super Bowl 59. The Chiefs will try to three-peat against the Philadelphia Eagles. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. City Lakina here with you, wrapping up hour number 1, talking NFL in Super Bowl 59. Lakina, I want to get to the Patrick Mahomes angle of this, as I brought up just a couple of minutes ago. Should Patrick Mahomes win 2 weeks from yesterday, should he be placed up there as the Michael Jordan of the NFL? Because no quarterback has won 3 straight Super Bowls. He'll be the first one to do it. And he'll have 4 Super Bowl rings, trailing Tom Brady by 3 in terms of rings. Andy Reid, we all know he's a Hall of Fame head coach, taking 2 different teams to Super Bowls. Of course, he won all 3 of his Super Bowl titles with the Kansas City Chiefs. But should we put Patrick Mahomes up there right now as the Michael Jordan of the GOAT, the Michael Jordan of the NFL right now, or do you have to wait until see if he can three-peat 2 weeks from
Yeah, I gotta
yesterday?
wait till I see every three-peat. I mean,
Okay.
he already. Yeah, I mean, look, he has 3 Super Bowls already. That's up there. There are a lot of players that have 3 Super Bowls. So let's wait and see if he, gets number 4 and puts him in a class by himself. The whole Michael Jordan thing, I saw that on Twitter, and you gotta love Twitter X because people have some kids have way too much time on their hands. So like, let's keep like the Michael Jordan thing out of it because again, you're playing 16, of course now in this case 17 games. You're playing 82 in the NBA, so it just seems like a little bit, kind of crazy that people would actually use that. But it's interesting to see what happens with all this. But yeah, I think look, Mahomes is definitely in a class by himself. Should he win? I mean, only Brady only has 7 now, so it's gonna be interesting to see how all this sort of shakes out. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see people kind of throw that name around. But yeah, I mean, look, I think. Look, Mahomes is definitely, especially since he's not 100%, you can kind of tell he still isn't, but you got to give him props for that. But I got to wait and see if he wins, against the Eagles in a couple weeks before you would put him in that category with MJ.
Just one more question before we close out our number 1. I believe Joe Montana has 3 Super Bowls, correct?
Yes.
Okay, why don't we have him as in the team photo as greatest quarterback of all time? He never lost a Super Bowl. I know Patrick Mahomes lost 1. Brady, I believe, lost 2. But why we don't have Joe Montana as the greatest?
3. Remember, he lost 3. Remember, lost 3. 2 with the Giants and 1 with Philadelphia. Yeah, he lost 3.
Okay, yeah, so there's 3. Okay, 3 for Brady. 3 losses for Brady in the Super Bowl. But why don't we consider Joe Montana, at least in the team photo, as a greatest quarterback ever? He never lost a Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, it seems like he's kind of a forgotten guy and all this. I mean, he didn't lose any of the Super Bowls when any of the Super Bowls he appeared with San Fran. So it's definitely like weird that he's kind of like the forgotten guy and all this. I mean, he had a great comeback in the second Super Bowl that they faced against Cincinnati, and it's definitely kind of like I don't know. I mean, I don't know why they have. Yeah, it's definitely he has 5. Well, 4 actually. Remember, 81. Of
81.
course,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has 4. So yeah, so if anything, he should be the if should Mahomes win it, yeah. Was it like straight like this, but every couple of years, sure. But he had of course he had to deal with Washington during that time. But yeah, I think he's even still he's kind of still been the forgotten guy in all this, and it's just unfortunate. But yeah, if Mahomes still win, I think he should be up there with Joe Montana. I wouldn't put him as Michael Jordan when you have a guy who has 4 Super Bowls himself. So it's kind of silly that's all. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. If he does do that, will people put them in that pedestal? But yeah, we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, as you mentioned with Montana, with the competition he's gone through, when he went throughout his career, we met with San Francisco, not just Washington. Don't forget the Bears, the New York Football Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles. When those teams were coming up in the mid to late 80s, especially with that defense led by the late great Reggie Wright and Jerome Brown. Those, and of course, the New York Giants. So those 2 teams right there, they gave San Francisco trouble every year.
Mm-hmm. You say
and of course the LA Rams when they were good back in the 80s too.
Yeah, I'll say back back in the 80s with Dickerson and that group. The then Los Angeles Rams. Back in the 80s, and yeah, he had to deal with a pretty tough slate of teams as well. So yeah, so the fact that people kind of like just forgotten about him. I mean, it's a little kind of weird how all that sort of shakes out. But yeah, again, we'll see. If Mahomes could join that elite company. But look, I think Philadelphia. Look, we'll save it for next week. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I will say, we got plenty of time. We got 2 weeks to talk about it, so we'll see what happens.
Our number 1 in the books. Our number 2 straight ahead. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Hall Chicago, the Monday edition, the last one for the month of January. The Chicago Bulls, they say they are open for business, but their doors have been open in terms of collecting losses. They had another one last Saturday night against the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll discuss that. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and crew, they start off on a high note on their road trip with a big win over the Golden State Warriors. In college basketball, the Fighting Illini got a big win at home yesterday against the Northwestern Wildcats. Lakina's Chicago Cubs made another big move and will have a special edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more. She stayed locked and loaded right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so...
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded and live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. You better know that this is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, CK80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, on IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, talking Chicago Bulls and NBA basketball and college basketball abroad, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments to the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
Okay, off to the UC for the Bulls. We'll get to all the stuff that has come out in a second here. That apparently they're open for business, but we'll get to that in a minute here. But the Bulls suffer a tough loss against the Sixers, only scoring 14 points in the fourth. Just awful. PG, of course, he got hurt, so he was out. Of course, B was out with his injuries, so they were shorthanded. But Tyrese Maxey had 31 points. Kelly Oubre Jr. had a season high 22, and the Bulls just couldn't get it going. Zach had 25, Vooch had 22 and 12 boards, double, but unfortunately, the Bulls just couldn't get it going on the other side. Other guys did struggle. P. Willie had 2 points. Lonzo did what he could for only 24 minutes. He had 9 points. It just wasn't enough as the Sixers beat the Bulls 109-97.
As we talked about in our last couple of shows, the Chicago Bulls' interior defense has been terrible. But another ugly trend that has continued for this Bulls team is turnovers. They had 24 assists on Saturday night, but they had 20 turnovers. You're not going to win many games in the NBA committing 20 plus turnovers. And that's been one of the biggest problems for the Chicago Bulls. And also, too, with the points in the paint. As I mentioned, with the interior defense, Philadelphia had 54 points in the paint. As you mentioned, no Joel Embiid. Paul George went out early in the game with a finger injury. They had 6 guys, I'm talking about Philadelphia, that weren't available for this game on Saturday. I said, well, the Bulls can get a good streak going there, be able to steal a game. It wasn't the case, as you mentioned, a bad fourth quarter. And here's the thing, Lakina. I'm not going to say certain guys shouldn't play, but why isn't Matas Buzelis? I know he's going to participate in the slam dunk contest next month at the All-Star game in San Francisco, but why isn't he getting more playing time, especially with the injuries to Kobe White, Javon Carter? Why isn't Matas Buzelis getting more playing time? Now, I had the fortunate/unfortunate pleasure of watching this Bulls game Saturday because my antenna did not act up. Yay! But I had to watch that ugly-ass second half, Lakina, and I came out disappointed. I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely the time for the Bulls to pounce. They weren't able to do that. So again, this is kind of par for the course for the Bulls this year. And it continues. And it gets better for the Bulls. They actually get to face the last 2 champions. They face Denver tonight, and on Wednesday they face Boston. So it gets so much easier for the Bulls. Of course, they host Jokic and the rest of that group. Now they did beat Denver the last time they were at the UC last season, but unfortunately, I mean, this is sort of like, I'm glad I can't watch the Bulls because I would be a little disappointed. So disappointed this isn't too bad.
Well, I watched it for you, Lakina. You probably would have felt the same way I did.
But yeah, just discontentment, I think, is really what I would feel like. Watching this Bulls team right now. And we'll get to the rest of the NBA in a second here. But apparently Joe Colley, according to him, he came out with a report late yesterday that the Bulls are open for business. Like everybody but Buzelis, was open for the trade market. So, and we know some of the rumors that we've seen with Zach and Vooch. They're trying to trade P. Will. Yeah, good luck, doing that one. But it'll be interesting to see if the Bulls, do get what they want, because they probably aren't going to get what they want, especially as far as Zach's concerned. Now Zach can bring all the numbers he wants. He's been a good employee for the Bulls, but again, that might not be enough. So I can say you're open for business, but unfortunately, it doesn't mean that people might other teams might bite.
As we talked about over the summer, as we talked about on our last couple of shows, I will remind folks again, especially for you newcomers that are joining us today, Zach LaVine is just not a good fit for this Bulls team and where the organization wants to go moving forward. The league is telling you, we said this over the summer, we'll say it here, the league is telling you what his worth is. Strategically, are the Bulls doing the right thing to hold out just in case a team has a big player hurt, like a Philadelphia or Denver, or a team that has a major injury, so the Bulls have all the chips on the table in their favor? Yes, but the league over the summer told you what he's worth in terms of the contract that they signed to him a couple of years ago. You're not worth as much as you think he is in your eyes. And the last time the business was operating like that with the Bulls, John Paxson, Garth Forman, they both got out of here. So Arturas Karnisovas and GM Mark Evans, they had to be careful here in playing with this Zach LaVine trade situation. So they may have to take the best deal that they could get. If you try to hold out for something bigger, I think you're going to be disappointed. Now, P. Will, if you try to trade him straight up, especially with the contract extension you gave him over the summer, you're not going to get what you want. He's going to have to come in the package deal. You might have to pair him up with Zach LaVine to get what you want. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, this team needs draft picks, i.e. first-round draft picks. So how are they going to get that done? They got to be creative. But first, they got to be realistic on what their players are truly worth out there in the NBA market.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakeem McGee, Steve Brown with you. You got the NBA trade deadline, coming up. It's Second City Sports, talking about NBA and Bulls. We'll get to the rest of the NBA in a minute here. But yeah, with the trade deadline coming up next Thursday, the Bradley Beal rumors doesn't seem to be going away. And look, look, I know that there have been, folks that say, well, what about, as part of a multi-team, a trade, if you will. And it's just sort of one of those things where you kind of like, okay, do you really want to trade Zach and or Vooch, depending on how the trade structure for a guy. Yes, he has an expiring contract and, he can't stay healthy. But again, it's kind of one of those things where you're just like, what the hell are you going to do here? So it's just it's kind of crazy how all that kind of like maps out here.
Yeah, as we talked about on the show last Friday, we talked about that rumor trade that was floating around on Twitter X with the Jimmy Butler situation. He's trying to get traded to Phoenix. So the rumor was that Jimmy Butler was going to go to Phoenix, Zach LaVine to Milwaukee, and Bradley Beal to here in Chicago. Outside of it being Bradley Beal believe has a couple more years left on that deal, if I'm not mistaken. You correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're Bradley Beal at this stage of your career, you're trying to get a championship. Why would you want to come here? First, he's only one of two players in the NBA that has a full no trade clause. Why would you want to come here unless you have a backroom deal that you could work out behind the scenes? But outside of that, if you're Bradley Beal, why would you want to come here? And you're not part of the future plans for the Bulls, what they want to do anyway, whether this current administration with AK and Mark Eversley are here past next year or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like weird that hearing all these people that are pushing this, Beal to the Bulls thing. But if you're Beal, you're not getting any younger. You want to go someplace, whether you stay with Phoenix or whether you go somewhere else. You want to go someplace where you want to have a chance to have a ring. The Bulls are not ready, or nowhere near ready for that. So it's gonna be, kind of crazy. Would you want to spend? Unless, like you said, unless they do a buyout where he gets released, and he can pick where he wants to pick. So that's going to be another thing. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the Beal trade is sort of interesting to me because why would the Bulls want a guy that probably is not going to want to come here? And two, I mean, the guy it probably is going to have to maybe take a couple games off here and there for to nurse some of the various injuries he's had over the years. So yeah, I wouldn't want to. Even if you're a Bulls fan, you don't even want that. So it's kind of crazy how all that works. Now, Lonzo Ball, everyone's saying that he could be the steal for the trade market. So if you can get him if you get a good like mid-level first round pick for Lonzo, and perhaps maybe he can kind of help out a team, a contending team. I know that some of the I know the Clippers, that stero's been thrown around. I know that a couple other Western Conference teams,
they could definitely use him.
Yeah, and also I know that a couple other Western Conference teams could have inquired about him. So he could be, if he keeps playing, if he can stay healthy and keep playing, he might be a steal for the Bulls, and maybe AK Nevers can get something for him of value. I mean.
I know we brought these two players at the beginning of the season. I'll bring them up here now. They could be potential trade candidates. Selfishly, I do not want both these guys to go, but they may come part as a package deal, especially in regards to Zach LaVine. Kobe White, I know he's injured right now. Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu. And I know they almost lost him a couple of summers ago. And he's been improving dramatically, especially with his offensive game. Do you think realistically one of those guys will be gone by next Thursday? I don't think so, but I wouldn't be shocked either. I think more so with Ayo. I think Kobe White is safe unless it's a deal that will blow your socks off. But a hidden trade candidate is Ayo Dosunmu. Do I want to see him go personally? No, but he could play for a few contending teams if the deal is contingent to what the Bulls will want in return.
Yeah, I think I don't think neither White nor Ayo will go anywhere. But I would say if I had to pick one that might be likely to leave, I think it is Ayo because you can probably get a good value for him. But like I said, I think if these two are going to be a part of this rebuild Bull squad, which again, this is another discussion for another time. I don't think Bulls fans will be patient with the rebuild, but again, that's no discussion for another day. But yeah, I think if you can get a nice value, like I said, on either case, if less is something that usually just blows AK Eversley's minds, I think they're both going to stay here in Chicago come next Thursday.
All right. You're listening to Yeah, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Concept of the League. We'll start out with the game of the night last Saturday night. It was the Los Angeles Lakers 118, the Golden State Warriors 108. LeBron James did his thing. Anthony Davis had 36 points and 12 rebounds. LeBron James added 25. On the flip side, Steph Curry had 13 points, but all of them were occurred in the first half. He was scoreless in the second half. No Draymond Green. No Jonathan Kuminga for Warriors. The Lakers dominated the game from start to finish as they start their Grammy road trip pre All Star break.
Yeah, and this is a really, a really good, good game, and of course, like I said, it was all Lakers in the fourth quarter, especially. Steph, had his shooting struggles. Really cool that he actually signed a couple of jerseys for Coach JJ Redick's two sons. So that was really nice, there for him. But yeah, I mean, I think the Lakers, if you can pull off a couple of deals, like I said, I know that. It could be interesting if they do anything because the Lakers have actually been playing pretty well lately. So yeah, I mean this is a really good win for the Lakers. So yeah, they're kind of right there, like in the top five, top six. So as we're recording this, so yeah, this is a big win for the Lakers. On Saturday, and actually ended up being okay for them. So we'll see if they can kind of keep it going there now, especially their other LA team, the Clippers. They had a 127-117 win over the Bucks. 40 points from Mr. James Harden. The Clippers, they're climbing up in the standings as well. Phoenix, no trouble with the Wizards. 29 points for KD. This is a busy schedule on Saturday, folks. Memphis beat Utah. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 28 points. The Knicks with OJ Anunoby's career high 33 as the Knicks beat the Kings. Houston beat the Cavs. Alperen Sengun had 26 points. Darius Garland had 39 points. It was just a late game. If anything, the Cavs. This is the one thing that the Cavs keeps them from going to the finals this year. It's going to be those late game, tangents. Of course, we saw Garland miss those free throws last week, and now it's just a total collapse on Saturday.
Yeah, you got to tighten up those screws or straighten up those bolts if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about on the flip side the Houston Rockets being one of those improved teams in the NBA. Alperen Sengun, as you mentioned, he's becoming one of the best young big men in the game. I know some people call him the next Nikola Jokic. We'll see about that if and when the Houston Rockets, should they stay on the space, make the playoffs this year. I want to see what he could do on the big stage. But we all know he's one of the best young big men in the league. So the Houston Rockets give head coach Ime Udoka credit. I know he's not the favorite for coach of the year. That goes to Kenny Atkinson of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But it's been a great year for Udoka and his coaching staff so far in Houston. And as long as they don't have any major injuries, we all know what the young talent that they do have. As long as they don't have any major injuries, they should finish no worse than number 4, maybe number 5 if they slip a little bit. But they should finish within that top 4 range at the end of the year.
Yeah, it could be interesting. They can keep it up. So, we'll see after the All-Star break. Toronto beat Atlanta. Orlando beat Detroit. Charlotte beat New Orleans. Miami beat Brooklyn. The first, not the first game, but the second game of the triple header on ABC. Jason Tatum had 24 as the Celtics beat the Mavs in the rematch to last year's finals. Minnesota, no trouble with Denver. Anthony Edwards had 34 points. He was, thinking 6 or 7 from 3-point range as they shot the ball as a team very well. I think they shot about 50% from 3, and they're tough to beat when they do that as they beat Denver. And Indiana got their revenge against the Spurs in France. 136-98. Tyrese Haliburton had 28 points. Wemby struggled. He did get a double, but yeah, it was all Indiana after the second quarter of that game in Paris.
I watched a total of 5 minutes of that game on Saturday. I'm talking about the Pacers Spurs game. Yeah, the Pacers, they were looking at chops for what happened on Thursday, as we talked about last Friday on the show, and they got their revenge indeed.
Oh boy, yeah, they jumped on them really quick. I know Rick Carlisle was very happy about that. Friday's games, there were only 3. Philadelphia beat Cleveland. Paul George had 30. 139-126. The Grizzlies over the Pelicans, and Portland beat the Hornets 102-97. Anthony Simons had 27 points there.
And speaking of the Blazers, the long game in the NBA yesterday, the Thunder get back on track. They beat Portland on the road, 118 to 108. I want to go over a couple teams with you, Lakina, as we continue right here on Sports Zone Chicago Second City Sports discussing the NBA. Oklahoma City we talked about them being a surprise team last year. They lost to the eventual Western Conference champion Dallas Mavericks last year. This year they're stronger. They're stronger than ever. Isaiah Hartenstein's been back from that early season injury. He's been making a huge difference for that team. I think Chet Holmgren should be back soon. You know he missed the majority of the year with an injury. How is some of that they get Chet Holmgren back? You know they've been playing great without him, but assuming that they get him back around the All-Star break, how much? Assuming that Sam Presti, do you think that Sam Presti needs to make a move at the trade deadline? And number two, assuming that he doesn't, do you think Oklahoma City has the squad, providing that they stay healthy, they can get to the finals?
If I were him, you got all those draft picks. I would say maybe I would say probably try to get another big man, and perhaps maybe even get a guy from that could shoot mid range, because that's really been the key here. That's what happened last year, unfortunately. So I think if you're the Thunder, you want to try to see maybe bring somebody in that has playoff experience. I know they had playoff experience, with what they did last year. But if you want to get somebody who has a ring, perhaps maybe bring him on to kind of like be kind of like that leader for that team. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with having an extra veteran leadership, if you will, for that young squad. And they're all very mature in those. If you heard SGA in interviews, he's really mature and very. I remember him when he was in college, and he was just very mature beyond his years over at Kentucky, playing for Coach Cal and years ago. And I know Jalen Wood has been very solid. He had 24 points in that game last night against Portland. Hartenstein had 14. But yeah, I mean, if you're you don't want to have to depend on especially with SGA and Williams all the time. So you're going to probably need a veteran wing guy, maybe a big guy to kind of help, soften the burden, perhaps maybe help out a little bit in case, Williams and SGA have a bad night. You want to have that extra, player in your back pocket, just in case, in that role, especially if you want to go further to the playoffs. So I think if you're Sam Presti too, look, you get all those first, second round draft picks. I mean, I would think you want to keep those in back pocket. I would say maybe use them, perhaps maybe entice somebody, and bring in somebody with an inspiring contract, perhaps.
Send a couple of spots behind them in the Western Conference. Send at number 4, the Denver Nuggets, 28-17. I know they play the Bulls tonight on the road. They had a bad loss at Minnesota on Saturday afternoon. Are you a believer in the Nuggets, or do you think they have to make a move by next Thursday's deadline?
I think they are going to have to make a move as well. I mean, for me, really helps is going to be. I don't think they have to, but I think it would be nice if you're the Nuggets. You want to have the extra player in your back pocket, because I think with them, help's going to be an issue. We know Murray's been in and out of the lineup. Jokic, will have to maybe take a game off or two every once in a while to kind of see, maybe have a rest so he can be ready for the playoffs, because he's getting a little bit older now. So yeah, you got to think that. I'm sure Coach Malone's going to be thinking about that. So yeah, I think if you're Denver, you want to see if you can maybe look around the market, see if you can get somebody. Because I think if you want to try to win another championship, you're going to probably have, look, Westbrook, look, he does his thing, being, in the sixth man. But again, you may want to have the extra guy in the back end, so to kind of, get that going. So I can see Denver perhaps maybe doing a trade, maybe a small trade to kind of bring in an extra guy off the bench, because you never have too many guys there. So I think for me, Denver's really Denver's another one team to kind of watch out for if they want to decide to pull a trade here.
As I said all year long on this show, the Denver Nuggets bench has suffered through trades and free agency over the last couple of years. KCP, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, for those of you going at home, he left for the Orlando Magic over the summer. Of course, we know what happened with Bruce Brown following their championship year a couple of years ago. He left for greater pastures. Christian Brown, what can Brown do for you? He was inserted into the starting lineup early in the year, which weakened their bench. You talked about Russell Westbrook, but he needs another guy to come off that bench, and that's been Denver's problem all year long. They need a guy like Zach LaVine to take the pressure off of Jokic and Murray. And Michael Porter Jr., he could be that trade piece that could bring something back for Denver to help along with that bench. But we'll see what happens with that squad. The Dallas Mavericks currently at number 9. I know Luka should be back soon. As long as Luka comes back, I think Dallas will avoid the play-in tournament. Which teams that can leap over? I think the two LA teams should be wary when Luka gets back. That's the Clippers and the Lakers. The Lakers, like I said, they have an important road trip that could make or break their season. We'll break down their schedule coming up here in a moment. But I like the way the Clippers are playing right now. And as I said before a couple of minutes ago, they could use a guy like Lonzo Ball as a point guard, take that pressure off of James Harden. He doesn't have to handle the ball every damn time. And that Clippers team is actually nice. Norman Powell's having a great year. Zubac is having a good year. So, and they have a couple of young guys like Coffee that's been real solid. But that Clippers team is not as bad as people think. And Kawhi, I know he's back now. He's still not playing in back-to-back. He's only averaging 15 to 18 minutes a game. But if the Clippers can bring somebody like Alonzo Ball to their team, I think that would help. But for the Lakers, if assuming that Luka comes back for the Mavericks, which I think it will be soon, I think they'll be the team that Lakers fans should watch out for, because all Dallas needs is that one good long winning streak. And one of those LA teams, I think more so the Lakers and the Clippers, they'll be looking into barely going into that play-in tournament.
That's going to be the key here if you're the Clippers or the Lakers. We'll see if either one of them, because like I said, I think Lonzo would be a great fit. He's from Los Angeles, so I think I'm sure he would love to go back home and perhaps maybe help out the Clippers a little bit, because they're definitely going to need extra bodies and staying healthy. The Lakers, if they got anybody that's worth trading, I mean, I know Zach, he's from that area as well, and I know he would probably love to go back there, perhaps help out LeBron and AD, but they really don't have anything of value for the Bulls to give to them. So I don't know if you're AK and everything, you want to just, I don't know who you can get, unless you get D'Angelo Russell, an expiring contract. I don't know if you can, I don't know if AK and everything will like that. So we'll see what happens. There's going to be all types of trade rumors coming up in this next week and a half, as we go into the trade deadline. But could be very active week next week for the Bulls. So we'll see what happens there as we go into the schedule real quick for this week in the NBA. The Lakers continue their Grammys East Coast trip as they face Charlotte at 6. The first game of the NBA TV doubleheader should be a good one. Detroit's been playing pretty well lately as they face the Cavs. Houston and Boston, maybe NBA Finals matchup, perhaps. Precursor, we'll see. Sacramento continues their East Coast trip as well. They face Brooklyn. Orlando and Miami, that whole thing with Jimmy Butler. Really, hopefully we'll have an answer to that in the next couple of weeks, because I'm kind of over that drama. Memphis and the Knicks, right? I mean, Memphis and the Knicks at 6:30. New Orleans and Toronto. We talked about the Denver, in the UC playing the Bulls. As you say, Atlanta and Minnesota at 7. Washington and Denver. Milwaukee and Utah. We talked about, of course, the Clippers have a tough schedule coming up. Here's the first game of that test here. The second game of the NBA TV doubleheader tonight at 8:30 as they face the Suns. Should be a good one there.
All right, your schedule for tomorrow, Tuesday, looks like this. The first game of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader will feature the Los Angeles Lakers at the Philadelphia 76ers. As Lakina mentioned, the Lakers will continue their Grammys East Coast road trip. Other games following on Tuesday: Houston at Atlanta in a makeup game from the snowstorm last week. Utah will face Golden State. In the second game of the TNT Tuesday night doubleheader will feature the Milwaukee Bucks and the Portland Trail Blazers.
Wednesday, Brooklyn and Charlotte at 6. You got Detroit and Indiana. Should be another good one there. Toronto and Washington. The Bulls continues their difficult part of their schedule as they face the reigning champ Celtics. Cleveland and Miami at 6:30. The first game of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader. You got Denver and the Knicks. Sacramento continues their East Coast swing as they face Philadelphia. Dallas and New Orleans. Clippers and the Spurs, Minnesota and Phoenix. That should be a good one. And the second game, the ESPN doubleheader, should be another great one between OKC and Golden State.
All right, your schedule for Thursday looks like this. The Lakers continue that East Coast road trip. They'll face the Washington Wizards in our nation's capital. The first game of that Thursday night TNT doubleheader will feature the Atlanta Hawks and the Cleveland Cavaliers from Cleveland. That's at 6 p.m. Minnesota and Utah. Houston and Memphis will be the second game in that Thursday night doubleheader. TNT doubleheader, that's at 8:30. Rounding out the Thursday night schedule will be the Orlando Magic on their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the Portland Trail Blazers. And that's your schedule for this upcoming week in the NBA.
That should be a good one between Houston and Memphis. Definitely going to be glued to
Mm-hmm.
that game coming up on Thursday. A quick break coming up, our last break of today's show anyway. As Illinois gets their revenge against Northwestern, a little bit of movement in the top 25 on the men's side in college hoops. The Cubs finally get their guy, and they actually had a pretty good value that I'm a little bit comfortable with. And a special edition of Old School TV Monday, and so much more. Lakita McGee and City Brown's Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More fun as we wrap things up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded and live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kingdom again on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. So, you have any last minute questions or comments for us as we dive into college basketball, Cubs, baseball, and Old School TV Monday? You can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Like, get the up on the screen for you.
Off to college hoops we go as the Illinois gets their revenge after losing to Northwestern.
Yay!
overtime heartbreaker. Last month, they get their revenge, 83-74 over Northwestern. Kylan Boswell had 17 points and 6 rebounds in that win. Of course, they were out their leading rebounder, Tomislav Ivicevic. Of course, he won. He missed his second straight game due to mono. Hopefully, he's doing well. But yeah, Kasper Jakionis had 11, 10, and 7 assists, almost a triple double there. Morris Johnson had 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks. So yeah, a great team win for Illinois to get back on track, and of course after losing a couple of road to Michigan State and Maryland. But yeah, nice bounce back win against their revenge against Northwestern.
It was a nice bounce back win for this young squad. Give Brad Underwood and his coaching staff down there credit for bouncing back after losing getting embarrassed by Maryland last Thursday night. How will this young team respond? You get a tough win against your rivals. As you mentioned, they got revenge on from the heartbreaking loss at Everton last month. And I said one of the keys to having a successful season for Illinois, their free throw shooting. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well from 3 yesterday, but they did shoot it well overall at 44%. Listen to these numbers. Offensive rebounding, 21-9 at a plus 12 advantage, and a plus 10 advantage in the rebounding department defensively, 29-19. So North 29-18, I should say, plus 11 in the defensive rebounding category. So the Illini were after it defensively yesterday. They controlled the tempo and the pace throughout the whole game. I know Northwestern made a run late, but the Illini were banging the boards from start to finish, and they forced Northwestern into 6 turnovers, but their rebounding was so tremendous, they really didn't have to force the issue on the other end. So the Illini's rebounding were excellent yesterday, as I just mentioned. So it was a nice win. Hopefully they can carry that momentum on, because they still have a tough stretch of games coming here within the next couple of weeks as the Big Ten schedule continues.
All right, Wisconsin, no trouble with Nebraska, 83-55. Memphis, beat UAB, pulling away from them, 100-77. Maryland, keeping up their getting their resume together. They beat Indiana, to edging them out. Ronnie Rice had 23 points, including a 3-pointer that ended up being the game winner. That's not Mike Woodson on the phone calling right now, because he's over there down there in Bloomington. North Texas, no trouble with FAU. Texas Tech beat Oklahoma State, and Navy beat Army in their rivalry matchup. Of course, unfortunately, Chicago State loses Central Connecticut State there. These are yesterday's games. And going into Saturday's games, Auburn held off Tennessee 53-51. Duke, of course, we all remember having them down there in Winston-Salem last year. Kyle Fikowski and a couple other players got hurt for Duke. Wake actually was ahead for a little bit, but Cooper Flagg led the way with 24 as the Blue Devils get their revenge against Wake Forest down there in Winston-Salem. Iowa State, no trouble with Arizona State. Alabama took care of LSU. Florida beat Georgia, no trouble with them. Double overtime thriller down in over in Lawrence at Fog Allen, as Houston beat KU in double overtime. Michigan State held off Rutgers. Vanderbilt, another their first time back in the top 25. I think since like 2009. They beat Kentucky 74-69. And interesting note here, they were actually picked to finish last in the SEC. And of course, with 4 wins in a row, including upset wins over Tennessee and now Kentucky. Now they're back in the top 25 for the first time, I think, 15 years.
Yeah, remember Jerry Stackhouse, I believe, was the coach for them many years ago. They went through a cycle of head coaches. Now looks like they had some stability down there now. So, like you said, a couple of teams, one of the teams that's come out of nowhere this year. I want to ask you about Florida. What makes them a top 5 team? I'll be honest with you. So I've seen a couple of highlights, a couple of their games this year. I haven't had a chance to watch them from start to finish yet. But even though we're in a parody of college basketball, as we experienced it over the last few years since COVID, who had the Florida Gators ranked at the top 5? Last time I saw them in the top 5 was, of course, almost 20 years ago, with 15, 20 years ago with Joe Kim Noah and Al Horford and the rest of that crew. What makes Florida one of the top 5 teams in the country from your vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, they're very balanced. They can shoot the three, they can shoot from from the inside very well. And look, Walter Clayton Jr. is probably one of the best players that you may not know too much about. He led the way with 17 points there. He's a transfer. I think he's a fifth-year guy. Elijah Martin's another one of those fifth-year guys. So they've been able to kind of build upon all that. They kind of finally got it going there. I know Todd Golden. I won't get into the off the court stuff. That they'll Google's your friend for that, but he's been cleared of that. Okay, but yeah, I mean, look, Florida, they can now focus with this, and then they're in the top five, and yeah, look, it's gonna be a murderous row in the SEC. These teams are gonna be playing each other within the next like 7 weeks before Selection Sunday. So yeah, Florida could be one of those teams where they may be a Final Four team. So look, you just gotta wait and see. If you haven't seen Florida play yet, folks, you might want to check them out. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I'll check them out coming up here soon. Back to the Saturday scores. So locally, Bradley get a big win over Illinois State, 61-57. Also, too, we had North Carolina. Shout out PD Pablo. North Carolina, they get a big win over Boston College, 102-96 in overtime. Looks like Hubert Davis has his squad back on track. I was asking you about them early in the year. You said don't worry about it. Looks like they've turned it around. And also, too, Southern Illinois, they get a big win over shout out Jay Hood, but they get a big 4-point win over UIC at the First Forum over there near West Side of Chicago, 89-85.
Yeah, nice win for Southern Illinois. DePaul, unfortunately, they lost to Butler by 17. Yeah, you kind of figured it was going to be a tough road in the Big East for them, despite starting 9-0. Baylor, no trouble with Utah. Northern Illinois beat Ball State. Southern Indiana beat Eastern Illinois, and some of the other scores from the top 25. Texas upsets Texas A&M. They're putting together a nice resume. Trey Johnson had a season high 30 points there. Mississippi State needed overtime, but they pulled away from South Carolina. Minnesota, Ben Johnson, no, not the new Bears head coach, but the head coach over at Minnesota. They've put together a nice little run there. They upset Michigan, then they upset Oregon by 8 points. The Fighting Mike Burmas, the Mizzou Tigers, as we call them here, they beat Ole Miss in a top 25 matchup. UConn loses to Xavier. Xavier putting together a nice little resume. And Jerome Tang's K-State Wildcats upset West Virginia. SMU pulled away from NC State. A couple other scores from note from Saturday. BYU, no trouble with Cincy. And that's about Oklahoma beat Arkansas 65-62. So, yeah, and Gonzaga, first time out of the top 25. That's a weird place for them to be at. But they took care of business against Portland by 43 points.
Couple of scores from last Friday night's action, especially in the Big Ten. Purdue get a big win at home over Michigan, 91-64. Also, too, UCLA, they beat Washington 65-60. And Iowa gets past Penn State 76-75. Those are the three important scores from last Friday. As we talked about with Illinois, the Big Ten is always competitive every year. This year is no different. I'll talk about another team that haven't watched the full game yet, but I've seen some highlights of this team. It's the University of Michigan. I know they gave Juwan Howard the boot a couple of years ago, but they're back in the top 25. They're ranked number 21 coming out of this weekend. I know they took a huge loss to Purdue, but are you still believing in the blue and yellow?
Yeah, I mean, Dusty May's done a great job there. So I think Big Ten is going to be a murderer's row there, especially with Oregon. They're in the top, 15 and such. UCLA, they're starting to kind of finding their groove back, and USC. So yeah, I mean, look, the Big Ten, there's going to be losses. Look what happened in Illinois the last week. So I think people need to kind of I think Michigan's going to be okay. Like I said, it's a long season. You still got about 7 weeks before Selection Sunday. About 6 weeks, in the season still. So yeah, can be a lot of movement. So speaking of Michigan, going into this week's schedule, they host Penn State at 5:30 on the Big Ten Network. Eastern Illinois, they meet Little Rock 2:00. About 15 minutes from now over on ESPN Plus. Iowa and Ohio State at 7:00 on FS1. NC State. Now again, a lot of those guys, weren't there for last year. The DJs aren't there anymore, but they do face Duke. Would love their revenge. 7:30 on ESPN. Second game of that big Monday doubleheader there. In the Colonial, you got Townsend Northeastern, CBS Sports Network. UCLA, USC at 9 o'clock on FS1, and a Big 12 matchup. I know, welcome to college sports in 2025. Iowa State and Arizona at 9:30 on ESPN.
All right, important games for Tuesday. This will be on FS1 at 5:30. This is Tuesday games, folks. Number 15, St. John's will face Georgetown on the road. Vic Bertina has done a tremendous job. St. John's is ranked number 15 in the country with a 17-3 record. Number 12, Kentucky will face number 6, Tennessee at 6 p.m. on ESPN. Continuing with the Tuesday schedule, we will have Michigan State number 7 face Minnesota. That's on Peacock at 7 o'clock. UCF will travel to Manhattan, Kansas to face the number 11 ranked Jayhawks. That's at 7 o'clock on ESPN+. Let's see. We'll go through the rest of the schedule here. Notre Dame will host Georgia Tech on the ACC network. That's at 8 p.m. And Oregon State will play Gonzaga in the state of Washington. That's at 10 o'clock on ESPN2 on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the West Coast. Remember, Oregon State was in the West Coast network this year for the rest of their sports. As they're the new Pac-12, if you will. San Jose State and San Jose State at FS1. That's going to be at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Baylor and BYU in a Big 12 matchup on ESPN2 at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Marquette will try to avoid the upset at Butler on FS1 at 7:30. VCU and St. Louis and CBS Sports Network on tomorrow. Now going to Wednesday's matchups, you got Auburn and LSU. It's gonna be on the SEC network at 6. Houston and West Virginia on ESPN Plus. Wisconsin and Maryland, that should be a fun one on the Big Ten network. TCU and Texas Tech, they're back in the top 25. I'm talking about TCU. They face each other on ESPN2. Do any other games of note? DePaul will try to get their second win of the Big East play as they face UConn. They're probably not going to be in a very good mood after losing to Xavier.
Good luck.
7 o'clock on Peacock. Oklahoma State and K-State at CBS Sports Network at the same time at 7. Xavier and Creighton, I think both these teams are going to be fighting for, I don't want to say it's a bubble game, but definitely going to need to fresh up their resumes. Both of them 7 o'clock on FS1. Alabama and Mississippi State is going to be on SEC Network at 8 o'clock. ESPN2 will have Texas and Ole Miss at 8 o'clock. Rutgers and Northwestern on the Big Ten Network. Nevada and Boise State on CBS Sports Network. UNLV and Utah State on FS1 at 9. And Syracuse and Stanford, this is the AC matchup, folks, at 10 o'clock, I should say, on ESPNU.
Well, local game of note for Wednesday, we'll have USC at 13-7. They'll travel to Bradley to take on the Bradley Braves. There are 18-3 right now. That's at 7 o'clock on Wednesday on ESPN+.
Couple of games I know here for Thursday. Illinois will face Nebraska in Lincoln. That's at 7:30 on FS1.
They've been slipping lately.
Yeah, I know Nebraska has. So yeah,
Nebraska.
So maybe we'll see if they can get it going there. Eastern Illinois and Western Illinois will be on ESPN Plus at 7:30. Memphis will go to New Orleans as they face Tulane at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. Let's see here. A few other games. Oregon, UCLA. This is a Big Ten matchup, folks. So FS1 at 9:30. Seattle University and Bryce Drew's crew down at Grand Canyon at 10 o'clock on ESPNU.
All right, and that's your schedule for college basketball for this upcoming week right here. On as you listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Still, Lakita hanging out here with you. We still have 50 minutes left remaining in today's show. Let's jump into baseball. Lakita, your team makes a big move over the weekend, picking up Ryan Presley from the Houston Astros in exchange for a prospect. Lakita, we talked about the Cubs strengthening out that bullpen. I think this should be your guy as far as a future closer. He's been very good for those Houston Astros teams in the past, and barring any major setbacks, he should do a nice job strengthening up that Cubs bullpen for the Northsiders this upcoming year.
Yeah, I know he hasn't. He's 36 years old. And I know the last couple of years he's been injured, but once he's on, and the Astros are going to take a chunk of that salary, that $14 million salary that he's owed. So that makes me feel a little bit better about this trade. So they're going to.
But I thought the Ricketts were broke.
Yeah, right. So yeah, so the Astros are gonna take a chunk of they're gonna pay a chunk of that salary. So it makes me feel a little bit better there. But yeah, I think this is definitely a closer that a guy needs, and maybe this could be a good prove it season for him. So yeah, I think this is a great because that's a look. You actually have a closer now. So if you can take it if you're a Cubs fan now. According to Ken Rosenthal, Michael King, the veteran pitcher for the Pirates is now, but the Padres, I should say, is now available for trade. Much to our buddy Lawrence's chagrin. I know the Pirates are the second team after the White Sox. Now he's available for a trade, so we'll see if the Cubs can get on that.
Yeah, as I was going to ask you, like I'm talking about the Cubs. They still need a starter. Will it go down? I think it's too late as far as the free agent market is concerned, but they'll have to go out via trade to get one. Maybe Seattle has a starter that you may want. Maybe a couple other teams in the American League, but if you're Tom Ricketts and crew and Jed Hoyer, you still need another starter.
So yeah, we'll see if they can make a trade for Mr. King there. And Sox Fest commence this weekend. Of course, Mark Burley is they're gonna honor him later this season for the White Sox. So that should be a very exciting and maybe it won't take about 15 minutes, I guess. So usually like a half hour, but yeah, that's but they made the announcement over the weekend. But yeah, I mean, it ended up being a nice little Sox. I saw the highlights of it, and yeah, I mean, we'll see if the Sox. I don't think the Sox are going to be as that bad. I think they will still probably finish last in their division, but I think I don't think they're going to be as bad as they were last year. At least I don't think.
I don't think so either. Most of the main stars that are supposed to play this year, they will play this year, barring any major injuries or any major setbacks. As most Sox fans want, they want a competitive team they can respect and root for. Even though the playoffs are not on the table for the Southsiders this year, you want a team that's representative of you on the field that knows the baseball IQ. They know when to play hard, not to take plays off, and don't take anything for granted, and just play hard-nosed, good, clean baseball, and that's what we expect on the South Side. Now, as far as Mark Burley's statue is concerned, that's going to be on Friday, I believe, July 11th against Cleveland. There's going to be a ceremony before the game. That's actually one of the few 7-10 starts that the White Sox have for their home games this year, so maybe they saw something that we didn't as fans. And I know also, too, the White Sox released their promotional schedule this year. We'll go over that on our next show on Friday with our girl Christine, the Queen Manica from KSRB, will join us. We'll go over the promotional schedule. I like some of the items that they're giving out this year. As usual, they'll usually have a couple more up there, so they'll announce at a later time. But for the 125th anniversary of this franchise, and of course the 20th year of the 2005 World Championship, it looks like the Sox really pulled out the rug from the people's feet for this one, for this year, as far as the promotional items are concerned.
Yeah, it should be a fun night there, and all the cool promotional stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, it should be a fun one. So I can't wait for that.
We definitely got to get you out to a game this year, Lakina.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Going to the course of tennis real quick. The Aussie Open crowned some champions over the weekend. So local champions. We'll start with tennis girl Madison Keys. After 46 Grand Slam appearances, she finally gets her first going through a murderer's row schedule during the Aussie Open. She beat the top two seeds. She beat Swiatek in the 3-set thriller, and she beat Sabalenka, dying her third straight Aussie Open in another 3-set thriller. I saw the replay of this match, and you could tell after the win, you could tell how emotional she was. She suffered through some injuries that you thought that she really thought that she wasn't going to be able to play anymore. And that's how bad the injuries were. She persevered. Her coach Bjorn Fratangelo, who he became her coach last year. They actually just got married last November. And seeing him, and her parents were there to share in the moment with her, and just I'm so happy for her. Look, I've watched her grow up. I first saw her like she was like 17 or 18 years old, and all the the ups and downs and such. She's come a long way, and she's just showed you that perseverance does pay off.
Yeah, oh how the years go by. I think it was the last year's US Open that she couldn't continue because of
Mm-hmm.
the hamstring injuries. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was a nice comeback win for her. I was worried about her after that second set, but she came back and dominated that third set to get the win. So I'm very happy for her, and hopefully without any major setbacks, she could continue along her illustrious career. I'm not getting ready to say that she's the next Venus or Serena Williams. Unless she really goes on the streak like that, there'll really be something. But to finally get over that hump, I'm really very proud of her. Chicago's very young, by the way. I know she was born outside the Chicagoland area, but we still claim her as our own. At least I do
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, like she's a Rock Island native, but look, it's only about like a
Yes,
20-30 minute drive, so whatever, close enough. So,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. So, you saw that, the sweet moment between her coach slash husband and her parents. You saw how emotional they got seeing her because they've seen all the trials and tribulations and stuff. So, yeah, good for her. Look, she's now number 7 in WTA rankings. So, yeah, hopefully this is the first of many for Miss Keys.
Yes.
Finally for her. Also, too, another Grand Slam. This one is a Chicago native, Taylor Townsend, along with Katerina Siniakova. They win their second Grand Slam together. They win the women's doubles at final on Sunday. So, good for her. I know Taylor got all the way to the quarters in Wimbledon a few years back, but she found her niche in doubles. Her and Siniakova. They now, this is, like I said, this is their third final. Of course, they lost in the U.S. Open final, but they did win Wimbledon last year. They now have 2 Grand Slams together. So, and they're actually one of the top women's doubles teams in the world.
Yeah, congratulations to the lovely ladies. I want to ask you a question real quick. Why don't many people pay attention to doubles? I think that's more difficult than the singles. To be honest with you, you got to depend on somebody else. It's all got to be about strategy, and you have to be on one accord with your teammate.
I think it's because you don't see a lot of the top singles players doing doubles that much. I know Coco Golf does every once in a while with Jessica Pegula. You do look on the men's side. Look, John McEnroe won a couple of doubles titles. Of course, Martina Navratilova, she won multiple doubles titles back in the years ago. So yeah, I think that's probably why you don't see a lot of the popularity in doubles is because you don't see a lot of the top men's and women's players play doubles like you did back in the day. I think that's one of the main reasons why. So yeah, but then again, like I say, you have Taylor Townsend who found her niche doing that. So I think that look, sometimes you find your niche doing doubles, so it's fine. Now, of course, also congratulations to Yannick Sinner who wins his second Aussie Open, his third Grand Slam. He won the U.S. Open, so it's the second Grand Slam in a row for him, being Alexander Zverev. And look, we said that Sinner could be that new guy, and now he's won the last 2 Grand Slams. Of course, with Djokovic, starting to show his age a little bit with the injuries and such, he could probably be, he, Alcaraz, and a couple of those other guys. They could definitely be that new guard, if you will, in men's tennis.
Yeah, like I said, everything comes and goes, and it's time for a change. It's time for new faces to emerge. And looks like we finally seeing it on both sides with Venus and Serena when they dominated through nearly 2 decades, and with Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi really going back to our childhood. But it's nice to see some new fresh faces coming up.
Yes, we got a couple of months before the French Open, so of course there's going to be a few other. Indian Wells is coming up in about a month, so he's still got a lot of great tennis coming up. So look, tennis is definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. As we get into the months, as we get further into the season in tennis, so it should be interesting. So, anything else before we go to Old School TV Monday, Sid?
No, let's finish it off with Old School TV Monday. Now, before you introduce Old School TV Monday, Lakina, I'll give the keys to you. This is one of the few times I wish we were back doing our back in the studio during our show. We'll be I'll kind of give it away. We will have a bunch of clips of this certain genre of music playing right now. That's the only thing that irks me a little bit. But I'll let you introduce Old School TV Monday. It'll all make sense with what I just said. Take it away, young lady.
All right. So this special came out not too long ago. I think in November of last year, and it was kind of, I will say this, it was kind of like sort of the dirty little secrets I guess if you want to call it that, house music, a cultural revolution, aired on November, I think November 4th of last year, and it chronicles the various places where the Chicago house music scene after disco, and disco sucks and all that happened at the old Comiskey Park back in 1979. But now the sort of the way of the range of house music started emerging all over Chicago, especially in gay clubs, especially in Chicago, in black clubs in Chicago. So that kind of started that whole trend there, and of course, sort of behind closed doors, if you will. And it was, like I said, it was kind of considered taboo because the way the music was, scored and the music was kind of put together. So that was sort of like the safe spaces for people. African Americans, also for the LGBTQ plus communities back in the early '80s. And DJ Frankie Knuckles, he kind of started that trend there, using synthesizers and bass and bass drums and all that. That kind of started, that kind of gave Black and LGBTQ plus groups a voice, through that music. And of course, like I said, this aired in December of last year. It's right there on YouTube, folks. So or you can go on the PBS.org's website. They have the full episode there. If you got the PBS app, it's right there for you locally here in Chicago. But yeah, it gets really in depth on a lot of the great music that kind of emerged during that time in the '80s, especially. So just a really great, for clubs and festivals from London to Cape Town and everywhere else in between. Like I said, gave people a voice for the voiceless after the disco genre kind of died down, and this kind of emergence of house music, all over the world.
Yeah, I told you that I watched this special. It popped up on my timeline on YouTube last weekend, so I watched it. And I told you, I said, we should make this old school TV Monday. You said yes, and I'm glad we are doing it today. I watched it again this morning. And shout out to all the DJs. I know I'm going to start naming names. I'm going to forget some, but some of the DJs that were featured on there: Ralph the Raz Rosario, Gene Hunt, Wayne Williams, the late great Frankie Knuckles, Ron Hardy, and some of the places, and the female DJs that were featured on there too.
Yes.
I wish Sundance. I think she's still at V103,
She's
but
still, yeah, I think she's still there. She's still there, I think. Yeah.
yeah, but she wasn't featured on there. I wish they would have gave her some love, but I digress. But all the female DJs that were past and present, they were featured in this 52-minute special. And of course, we were kids of the '80s, Lakina, or we were too little to attend these parties. But I remember my parents and my mother, in particular, some of her friends, they were talking about some of the house parties back in the day. They featured featured in that special the music box, the original warehouse. And they featured those Mendel parties that school finally closed in '88. But those DJs that worked those Farley Chad Master Funk, shout out to him as well. But some of those legendary DJs worked those Mendel parties as well. And that's what kept that school open. Some of the priests didn't know what kind of parties they were going on in there. Nothing illegal, of course, but they were just dancing, having fun, and having a great time. And I remember hearing some of those stories growing up. Now, they did mention, I'm glad I watched it the second time, they did mention those DJs that were on the original 102.7 WBMX back in the day, now V103 for those of you scoring at home, WVAC. But it was also a Friday night and a Saturday night mix show. It was a Saturday night mix show called Saturday Night Live Ain't No Jiving, featured a Hot Mix 5 with all those mixes. I remember listening to that growing up, looking at especially the last couple of years before October of 1988, where they ownership changed and they switched it to, which is now V103. But some of those DJs, I wish they mentioned these other two radio stations in that special. They didn't, but we'll mention them here. Some of those DJs that worked at the original WBMX, they went to, remember, WGCI for until the early 90s. They had Club 107.5 on Friday and Saturday nights. And some of those DJs that went from WBMX, they went to WGCI. The others, like Julian Jump Perez, which I wish he should have been in that special, but I digress. Him, Tim Spinning Showman. Remember DJ Fast Eddie? That's EWDIE. For those of you that really know your stuff, he went over to B96. And so some of those DJs that after WBMX was sold, they went to WGCI and B96. That's what made house music popular on the
Yep.
radio back in the day. After WBMX, WGCI, and B96 both picked up the momentum at the end of the 80s toward the early 90s, playing most of those records that were only played in clubs. They played them on the radio on Friday and Saturday nights. And like I said before, it was a great special shout out WTTW for doing it. For those of you that haven't seen it yet, go to WTTW.com under Chicago Stories. And Lakina said it's House Music, a Cultural Revolution. Or you can catch it right here on YouTube. Just go to WTTW Chicago's YouTube page and check out the full episode right there. It's a great special. And some of those records that you hear today, some of those younger artists that are sampling it, those came from the disco records. House music is an extension of disco records, and the way you hear them, those songs blended together, and some people in the early days call it the change in the tempo of the music. It's the reason why that happened. It was to keep those dancers on the dance floor. And if you're a DJ, you know what I'm talking about. If you do it right, it'll keep people coming back. Just play the right song at the right time with the tempo, merge it in. You have yourselves a great time and a great party.
Yeah, some of those hip hop songs that are today, a lot of them came from that particular, from that house music and such. So it's interesting because now you're getting your stations, especially got those satellite stations. They've got a house music channel now. I know Sirius XM has a house music there on their lineup. So yeah, it kind of stayed everywhere where people, you thought that maybe it was just, you just saw it in black clubs and gay clubs, and it was, so like I said, it was kind of like a dirty little secret. Now it's everywhere around the world. You see house music, the genre has exploded. And look, I mean, people are seeing that, hey, you know what? Remember that song? Yeah, you heard it like back in the early 80s and the mid 80s. So it is definitely kind of one of those songs where I'm glad that they, when I saw the episode with my mom last November when it premiered, I thought, oh, okay, so now it all makes sense. And it's nice to see that these, like, they didn't mention a lot, like you said, they mentioned some of the days that didn't show. I wish they would have, but again, I digress. But yeah, it's sort of one of those the special where if you want to know where a lot of those songs came from, and a lot of the basis of those songs, like kind of how it was put together with the synthesizers. I know Gene Nichols sadly passed away about a decade ago from complications from diabetes, unfortunately. And but they had clips of him and sort of how he kind of started that trend. And it's gonna be kind of interesting to see like people seeing like some of those songs that oh, I remember that song. Yeah, well, like I said, it came from like 10 or 20 like 20, 25, 30 years ago. So that's where the kind of started with how the musicality kind of got put together.
I know we got to wrap up here, but I'll give you a quick story. Right before my mother passed in 2012, I happened to have my headphones on, and I think it was Soul 106.3. They played the original version of Isaac Hayes' "Love Can't Turn Around." I don't think that was ever. If someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's his version. I'm talking about Isaac Hayes' version was ever released as a single. And so I gave my mother my headphones to listen to it. I said, I know Isaac Hayes and "Love Can't Turn Around." I gave it my headset to put on. I was like, "Do you ever remember Isaac Hayes' version of "Love Can't Turn Around"? She said, "No." I said we started talking about the Ron Hardy edition, which blew up here in Chicago in the 80s with his version of "Love Can't Turn Around." Of course, it was produced by I think it was Farley Jam Master Funk later, and of course the late great Daryl Pandy singing "Love Can't Turn Around." This version that hit in 1986. So that the house version came from the original Isaac Hayes' "Love Can't Turn Around," which was he recorded back in the early 70s.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see like that music is starting to kind of get back in the swing of things again. So that helps a lot. So so for this edition of Old School TV Monday, house music, a cultural revolution in Chicago stories. Like we said, you can catch it on YouTube. I know WTW has it on their YouTube channel. I'm sure they'll re-air it at some point. But yeah, it's simple. It's just a lower 52 minutes. It's worth the time, and just make sure you guys check it out.
Yes, great job by both of us doing for Old School TV Monday. Glad it popped up on my YouTube feed last week. I told you last week off the air, I was like, we got to feature this soon. I'm glad today was that day.
And also, in accordance with Black History Month coming up starting next Monday, For the rest, for all of the month of February, we're gonna dedicate some with Black shows. Some familiar shows, of course, but some shows that you guys might have forgotten. So make sure you check out for Old School TV Monday all month long. Starting next week, we're gonna feature Black sitcoms. Like I said, a couple you guys might remember, but others you might have forgotten about. So make sure you guys tune in Sexy Sports about this time every Monday for Old School TV Monday as we salute Black sitcoms for all of February.
It's going to be big, big, big. I'll leave it at that.
Yes. So with that said, you can find my Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, XQS on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at Ward Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are located on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. While you're at it, please give Ward Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, folks, get Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on the Facebook and YouTube channels. Like Sid said, of course, you can catch the replays of our shows, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more. You can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, stay warm, everybody. Enjoy all the basketball coming up. I know we got a little break in between the Super Bowl if you're not boycotting it. So make sure you guys yeah, right. I mean, make sure you guys we'll be looking for any sports sports media news, baseball news, and such to get ready for spring training in a couple of weeks. So for Sid, I'm Lakeem. Stay warm and stay safe out there. This has been Second City Sports. I'm Sports Chicago. We'll see you guys Friday.
Work your body, work out, holla.
Oh, brother.